recording.
Okay, got it. So can everybody see the screen that I've got up front which says net branding and digital marketing approach?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
If
yes.
can see.
Cool.
you'd
So
like
I've
to
got
go to a full slide, please, Paul.
yeah, I can, but I will lose some of the other slides, so I won't be able to have the questions over. Right. I'll go that way. There we go. Over to there. Okay. So just getting into it a little bit about our team. Net branding on the whole has been around for around 11 years. We've designed 150 plus websites. I think that's probably out. There's more than that in there. 1,000 plus search engine positions. We focus a lot on search engine optimization, which is, we'll talk about exactly what that is. We don't want to, in this particular thing, we're trying to keep it as informal as possible, should I say, and let you guys ask the questions. So we're not going to drop into these complicated terms that no one knows what they really mean. We're just going to keep this fairly informal. We've got 15 team members all up and 13 international. So we work on different time zones. We've got clients in different locations, including South Africa, some Australia, I believe, and all over the place. So we work all in different industries in different places. So a little bit about us. It's Kathy, a little bit. Kathy's been around since, no, I won't say year dot, because that's not fair, but she's been around as a key speaker in digital marketing and information since 1989, even before the internet as it is now. And you can agree that the internet's changed a lot since then. A lot focusing around her clients' online aspirations. So that's basically is what Kathy focuses on a lot is the client end of it and making sure that the expectations of a client are met and that the communication is there so that everything is working the way it should. Do you want to add anything else to Kathy, since I think we'll be talking about you?
No, you've done a good job. Thank you.
No, okay, pat on the back. So next one, a little bit about me. I'm the digital production manager, which is a nice way of saying I make sure the websites go live and everything goes together and the points go together. Working through with the team. My background is an SEO, so that's ranking stuff on Google, Google Ads or paid advertising. Analytics is my focus as well. I focus a lot on measurement and how things work. Also, I've done behind bigger projects, including the Briscoe site when it went live, Rebel Sport and Living and Giving. But I've worked with smaller companies as well, with a passion for focus on results-based marketing. So I see a lot of web designers and a lot of particularly web developers. They have a particular approach, which I agree with and I slightly disagree with. I think it comes down to measurement. It comes down to business results is what really is important. And at the bottom there, I put a passion for small to medium business, spending money in the right places to increase business results. So that's really not about digital so much, but actually just making sure you're spending money and knowing what you're getting and what your expectations are. So, and it's Pawasha down the bottom there. She's overseas at the moment. She runs quite a bit of our social side of it. She's a very skilled marketer, but focuses purely on the social posts, and she's very good as far as the technical end, as how Facebook works and those top areas. Harsh up atop there. Harsh is our guy that's he's a full-on technical expert. He knows the nuts and bolts better than anyone in our office. And if he's going to find how things work, he'll find it out for you. He'll do all the technical geek stuff, and then he'll bring it to me, and I'll put it into client speak. So Harsh is great for that. So quick, this is a bit on how we're going to run this call. Please mute yourself unless you're the one talking or we've asked you to give us some input. We just want to make sure that everyone can hear the conversations. We've got a few questions to start with that have been put in. So we're going to go through those as we started. If you've got a question like mid-conversation, please just Zoom allows you to raise your hand and ask a question. Do that anytime we're going through. So we want to keep this as fluid as possible. So we'd love you to ask any questions that come from. Like Kathy's already said that the recording session will be recorded, and we also need to copy out after the call as well. Right at the end further on, we've got some commonly asked questions that we get all the time. So we're going to go through firstly the questions that we have, and then move on to some of those other commonly asked questions. As Kathy's already said, this is pretty much on the fly. We are going to bring up some things that we always get asked, the same things over and over, but we're also going to be quite direct, Many agencies are wonderful at putting a pitch together, putting a deck together, pitching this deck to people, and then not actually being there to respond to those type of things. So we have a slightly different approach. We have approach where we are focused on what the client is after. And that's probably part of the office vision, if you want to put it that way. Kathy, got anything else to add at this point?
No, we're all good. We're all good to go.
Oh, you're going to make me talk this whole time, aren't you, Kathy? You know I like the sound of my voice too much. It's like, but I do like, I'll be honest, I do like talking about this stuff because I see quite often, and this is a side note, I've had clients that I've had to apologize for because of how they've been treated by other people in our industry. It might sound cliche, but there's sharks in the water, and there's a lot of people that promise everything and deliver nothing. It's sad, but it is what it is. Now, let me just bring up our questions and we can jump into that. All right, it works. All right, so one of the first questions we've got is, can we do it ourselves? How much time should we be putting into digital marketing? You want to jump into this one first, Kathy?
So can we do it ourselves? There's always the possibility of doing it yourself. Obviously, there's some skill associated with doing it, and there's some learning associated with doing it. So I'm just letting Stephen in because he's just arrived. So when we're sitting in that situation where there's skill and the learning, it's about really questioning if that's the appropriate use of your time. If you're a startup business, obviously there's a cash flow element to it, and really important to get your basics right, to get that website out there, to start doing your social media. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the work that we do, I know that my team can get through something within a short period that may take somebody else a longer time to work through. And there are some larger organizations that do want to do it themselves because they do have the in-house resource to be able to do that. And what we find those organizations like when they partner up with Net Branding is what they like is us to look at what they're doing from a strategic perspective, to look at what they're doing from the things that they don't actually have the technology in the organization to do. So when it comes to social, yes, you could do a social post. When it comes to doing the advertising, sometimes there's a little bit more skill around that advertising to make sure you're getting the maximum value out of your spend. When it comes to technology of a website, you could go and, put your website into Weebly, you could go and put it into some of those other spaces. But the moment you start going into the WordPress environment, even Shopify, when you're trying to do some nifty things in Shopify, that's where the core skill comes through. A very good example was Paul and my team on Friday. They were called onto a gallery in Auckland, and that gallery had been struggling with a page on their website for days and weeks. They'd been on calls to the hosting provider. They'd been calls to many people to try and get it resolved. And at the end of the day, what we did was we actually got it resolved within probably a half an hour of being on there. So that had taken 3 resources, I don't know how long, to be involved with that, but we were able to get it sorted. So horses for courses, where do you want to spend your time? How do you want to spend your time? Where do you want to put your own resources? And then when you get to that point where possibly the technical skills aren't there, what do you do? So to answer your question, yes, you can do it yourself, but I'd always do it with a surrounding of people that you can turn to if you do have anything that you need answered. Paul, I don't know if you've got anything to add.
I think the technical element there comes up quite often. I think we've had that a couple of times where the client just couldn't get something to work, and because it's not their space, it wasn't their industry. Hey, can you fix this? And in half an hour, I know Kathy said to me, you fixed it quite fast. Okay, yeah, I knew where to go and I knew what button to push. And there's a whole cliche story actually about a guy. Guy was called in. This is totally side. The guy was called in to fix a machine. So this is a very cliche story. He come into the machine. He spent 20 minutes walking around the machine, 30 minutes looking over it, And then 5 minutes after that, he kicked it in the right place and the machine started going correctly. And then he sent his invoice through, and his invoice said, we're billed for an hour. And the guy says, well, hang on, you only did one thing in that end that actually made it work. He goes, yeah, but I knew where to kick. And my experience knew where I had to kick to fix it. And that's what a lot of it does. That task that I fixed on the call on Friday, I knew where to go to kick it. And that was why it was an easy fix. Now, technical side, you can go round and round in circles. Like Kathy mentioned other platforms.
And we're not going to charge an hour, are we, Paul?
No, we're not. And the point is not you could be going around as a client, could be trying to fix it from different providers. You go in different places. And we're very direct. That's my favorite word, direct, is we go, if things not working, we're going to point out why they're not working. And we do that quite a bit. All right, otherwise it's going to go too long. So I'm getting on to the next question. So the next question about Kathy is...
Just before we go on to the next question, I'm not sure who's posed those questions. You're more than welcome to pop something into the chat if you feel like you'd like us to expand on that question a little bit more. So if you don't feel we've answered it, then please feel free to comment and ask for some more insight.
Yep. So the next one I got is, does it matter if you're on the first page of search? And I'll let you lead off on this one, Kathy.
So the first page of search, I think there's a lot of mana for being on that first page of search, because we often say that those that live on page 2 and 3 of Google are largely hidden. Now, there are multiple ways of getting onto that first page of search. There's obviously search engine optimization, which can bring you up for what we call organic or natural search. Then there's obviously the element of a paid search, which can also get you up onto that first page of search. And then the third method for getting onto that first page of search would be your Google My Business listing. So is there value in being on there for the first page of search? Well, if somebody's looking for you and they're looking for your brand, they're going to find you because you possibly will come up for the search that they're looking for. But if they're searching for something like a mortgage advisor or a real estate agent, then being on that first page of search will give you a little bit of mana and esteem, because people, rightly or wrongly, have an expectation that because you're on the first page of search, you possibly know what you're doing. So I always think that there is some value, and as Harsh and our team will always talk to, he will talk to the probability of where the clicks go. And he'll probably correct me for saying this, but it's something like 30 or 40% goes for the first one, and then it drops to the second position is about 20%, and then it drops further down. So we know that organically those first searches get the clicks and those first search results get the clicks, but there are multiple ways of being on that first page. And it really depends on the knowledge of the searcher. There are people that say they won't click on a Google ad because they know that that person's paying to be there. They will look for the organic results. The other place to be on the first page of search could be through your videos, could be through your images, remembering that your audience and that your searcher or that your potential client is really going to be searching in a way that suits their personality profile. And so they say that only 10% of the searches online have really ever been planned, which is why when you're talking to a digital agency and they go, here's your 10 Google words, and we're going to rank you for those words and nothing else. I'm never comfortable with that. In most of our situations, we rather talk to visibility of the website, and we will often put between 200 and 700 keywords into a pot of what we believe are optimized terms that people could be looking for that service. And then we rank that service based on its visibility, and we watch and we track all those keywords to see how the visibility of that business goes. Because you know that if you're looking for a car, somebody could be going, I want a white car. The next person could be going, I want a fast car. The next person could be a fuel economic car. So everyone searches based on their own criteria. If you're going for a singular word like car, you could be off track. So for example, if we think of a word like a radiator, if you're in a radiator for auto radiator business and somebody types in radiator, it could be a mismatch because it could be somebody looking for your heating for your home radiator. So, be very careful about what you're wanting to rank on that first page for. I personally like to do a very wide approach and rather look at visibility, but also understand that you can be in an environment where there are multiple ways to actually be in that first position, not only one.
So what popped into my head is I deal a lot in keywords, and there is a question, I think it's a question later on, we talk about keywords, and that's search intent. And Kathy touched on it there. If someone puts in radiator as a single word search, they really haven't decided what they're looking for yet. They're still they're hunting around for an idea. If someone puts in, radiator Ellerslie, then that person wants a radiator in Ellerslie. They're further down the search intent, so they're more likely to take an action. And also with keywords as well, I'm going to reflect back to a search that I did. Well, a friend of mine, a plumber, he heard me talk about how you build your pages out so they're very focused towards a particular search term and how they're serving the user. And this is what Google's looking for. Google's looking for there to serve the pages that most likely serve the user. He said, I listened to you and you talked about how you should focus on problems of a specific area. And I says, yeah. And he said, there was no volume and search volume in this particular search term, but I put up a single page around the area of a fault which happens on a particular plumbing appliance. I can't remember which exactly one. And he wrote this specifically around this very specific term. Now, keeping in mind, there was no data to back this up. This was his business knowledge, which I think some business owners, they forget they've got that business knowledge here. And he said, I put this particular page up around this fault on the stove. And he said, when I get a phone call about, and they mention that page, I convert every second one of them into business, because the searcher intent has already defined their problem. The information to put up shows them as an authority to how to fix that problem, and business was natural. So there's a lot of discussion around what you should come up for. In some cases, I had a client recently who wanted to rank for his competitive search screens, XYZ brand problem, whatever it was. I said, there's no point. If someone puts another company's brand up there, they've already decided what they're looking for. All they're after is a location. So you've got to get in the searcher's mind and back that up. Now, Kathy touched on PPC, on paid advertising. That's a very fast way to actually convert and decide on those keywords at the same time. There are a lot of other elements, including how your website converts and how it's built up and all those different things, but it's a very fast way to get there. And for anybody thinking, what does it cost to do that? It can anything be from 10 cents a click, you only pay when someone clicks on an ad, up to $10 a click, depending on the industry. Okay. And it's so different.
Typically on that, Paul, if I can just chime in, one of the things that I predicted, and if you go back and have a look at a very poor video of myself that was taken about 10 years ago, my hair color was different and I looked very different. But I spoke about what I perceived would be an industry trend, and that would be that our pay per click or our Google ads would continue to increase in cost. And I mean, we've seen searches for a particular industry go from, and this was in the kitchen industry, go from 60, 70 cents a click and actually hit $20 a click for the same keyword, when some of those large organizations like Mitre 10, who were then in the kitchen industry, come on board. So, you can go down the path of Google ads, and we do Google ads for our clients, but I always think, and one of the things you will find as we come through this is, I really have a very strong belief that it's not one area of digital. It's not only your website, it's your search, it's your Google My Business. It's all the elements that form part of your ecosystem that can sustain you as a business, because remember, you're marketing your business in a place you don't control. So all of them won't change at once. But if you've spread your risk and you've spread your branding and you've spread where people can find you, you have a greater percentage chance of withstanding any change that the big corporate tech giants make on us.
Yeah, that's a good point too, Lou. With PPC, some agencies will do it as a percentage of spend. I'm violently against that, because that means you're spending more of your money to actually, the more you spend, the more they make. Ours is budgeted differently and planned differently. And I always want to make sure that return is there. That's what the focus should be on. It should be focused on the return. And that takes a bit of testing. You know, to put the two side by side, pay-per-click AdWords, very fast, very simple. You can be up in a day. Very straightforward, but you're spending money. So SEO is your back end. And the two, and it talks about, I haven't used this one with you, Kathy, 3 legs of a stool, right? So one could be paid, one could be SEO, and the other one could be conversion, as in tracking everything and knowing what people are doing and how they're spending it. And so many times when the tracking is not in place to hold all those things together, you spend money and you don't know where you're actually getting a return on it. And that's where...
Or perhaps that we can go into Emma's question, which is how much do you spend? And I think that was Emma's question as she came into the session. And Emma, to answer your question, you know, if you're wanting to have X amount of dollars out at the end of the day, the way that I believe that approach to a Google ad campaign should be is very methodical. So go into that campaign, make sure that you've got all your conversions, all your tagging, and all your tracking in place, so that when you start launching your ads, you know that you've got 3 campaigns running. You can track it all the way through to a conversion. You know where the sale is coming from. Once you know where the sale is coming from, then you know that you've got an ad campaign that is converting. And only then can you start leveraging up and spending more on it. So I don't believe there's an answer to go, if you want to make 40,000, then you need to spend $4,000 in sales. What you need to do is test it, find something that's converting, and from that state of conversion, then you can start ramping it up. As an example, people know that I have somebody quite close to me that sits in the legal sphere. We do exactly the same thing with that particular client. So we look at the ads that we run. We look at when the conversions are happening. What's a conversion? A conversion is an inquiry to a contact page. A conversion is a sale on a Shopify website. A conversion is a registration for an event. A conversion is maybe somebody picking or clicking on the call from a mobile phone. That's a conversion. When you see the conversion, then you know that the pipeline is starting to work for you. Once you've got a pipeline for ads that is working, that's when you can start putting more ad dollars to that, or breaking that conversion channel into future conversion channels that can then convert for you. So that's when it comes to managing those ads very, very closely. And so Emma, back to you. It's not about going to make 4,000, I need to spend 400. It's about knowing where the conversions are. And then once you've got the conversion and you know how many impressions to get that conversion, you can start working up to what that budget needs to be.
Thank you. Here, it sort of starts with, okay, so what does success look like for you as a strategy session? What does that mean to you? What do you see? And this could really simply, if you're talking about a product that sells for $50, you want $10 to make a sale. That might be oversimplifying it a little bit, but starting off with that strategy first, and with the PPC, you are going to invest. I used to work with an accountant, and he said, if you're going to go and test, it's going to cost some money. You're going to have to invest some money into it to get it started, period. And that packs well with the data approach that I have. So I may have interrupted you, Emma, but jump in whenever you want.
But also in terms of that conversion, what is a conversion? And I'm suspecting that most people on this call could be at the end of the phone themselves. But, we were working for an organization and we could track the conversion. We could see that the conversion was happening. But it was when we started to put call monitoring software in, the call monitoring software was placed there because we'd run out of tags on Google to be able to track conversions. But what we got out of the call monitoring software was the way that those calls were being answered wasn't conducive to actually doing the conversion. So the calls were coming through, but how are you treating those calls? When you answer the phone, do you know where that person needs to go to? Do you have an expectation of what that person is looking for? How are you treating that customer? What is the customer journey looking like? And so that's all part of that conversion that will actually result in the success. But when you look at the Google ad conversion, that's obviously to a particular instance. But remember that the real conversion happens after that step has happened.
Yeah, and that Kathy's touched on it, but also the integration of the offline and online. We're digital marketing. We focus a lot on the digital marketing side, but we also want to measure the phone calls that are coming in. How are they coming in? What source are they coming in? Where are you spending your money to make those phone calls? There's still a lead. There's still an action. But a lot of companies that and I looked at one this week, it was another PPC agency. I looked at their information and they gave CTR. That's a click-through rate. How many people click on it? They gave impression. They gave this and they gave that. And I'm looking for, where's the data that the client can see that it contributes something to the bottom line, because there wasn't anything in this report. And I'm going, this is a waste of time. Sorry, I get emotional about reports where someone's done this beautiful report. It might be 5 or 6 pages long, and the business owner goes, well, what does this mean to me? So that's my personal bugbear. I'll get off my soapbox now. What else have we got here? Does that answer your question, Emma?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Next question.
How do you choose the best social media to get the maximum attention? You're first, Kathy. You get to go first as the lady of the house.
Thanks, Paul. How do you choose the best social media to get your attention? I really think that I'm going to extend it beyond social media. So it's where do you believe your audience is sitting? So if you're in the service industry, so for example, you might be an insurance provider, you might be a mortgage advisor, where are your audience sitting? Is your target a demographic of a certain age? Is your target a demographic of a younger age? And based on the understanding of what your persona is that you're trying to attract into your organization, that will largely depend on where you go to for your socials. So people often say, well, I'm an insurance provider, I don't need to be in Facebook. Well, most people will go into the Facebook environment in their personal capacity. And from a heart-wrenching perspective, there may be people looking for certain insurances within that environment. So I never discount the Facebook environment, and Facebook will possibly always be in our mix. But from there, looking into, say, the fashion industry would be great for your Instagram. The fashion industry would be great for Pinterest, although, Pinterest hasn't really, in my opinion, taken off as much. But then if you're in the fashion industry and your audience is younger, well, then possibly you're going to be going into that TikTok environment. And with TikTok now doing, ads, it provides a little bit more of an access to us. So really, to answer that question is very you specific for your business and what you want for your business and who you're attempting to target. In my industry, which is the digital industry, you would think, well, most of that connection can be done in LinkedIn. Yet I find that I can do a lot of connection in the social environment by providing information into that environment on a regular basis. I'm not there to make the sale, but what I'm there to do is I'm there to actually go, here's something to think about. Here's a new tip. Here's something that I can share with you that's value add to that environment. But then also think that beyond your social, we often only think social, but also think about what I call brand ads. In the days gone by, and you still do it, but you would place an ad on the back of the bus. And then you drive that ad through the town and people see you. So they might see you as the local real estate agent. They might see you as a local provider of service. The same can hold true out of the social environment if you think of brand ads. So I'm thinking about your pop ads, I'm thinking about your image ads. Those can be very good for, and we come back to the earlier question of converting on the first page of Google. So we know that there's a period in time and it takes X amount of touch points for a person to recognize a brand. So branding ads, branding social ads can be very good to get the conversion happening when they do a physical search and they see you in the search. So again, it comes to building that ecosystem. Paul, I'll hand it over to you.
So yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with social media on the whole, to be honest. Let me explain that. People talk about social a lot, but they don't sort of, most small businesses do it rather badly, because if you scroll through a business page, you see on a lot of small businesses, you see, hey, this is me, this is what we do. Hey, this is me, is what we do. Hey, this is me, is what we do. And I do this. And that's all it says. And I take the approach of, if you were talking to a person like that, and you're just talking all about you, it doesn't serve the person that's reading it. So most small businesses don't put enough into their social to build that relationship, because it's like meeting a person, and these people are still finding out what you do. They want to know what makes you special. And always look at social from, if you could take it from one touch point, you want to get them into another touch point, because in social you've got no control. Let's be honest here. If they're on Facebook, they can disappear quickly, they can come in, they can leave again. You've never ever see them again. Whereas at least if you're trying to get them from that medium into another, just like getting on this webinar, it's another medium, another put into another way. And also, we've also seen in the past, and most people realize this, but social posts, organic posts on your Facebook page don't get a lot of reach. They don't reach everybody who's actually connected to you anyway. There's where some low-cost ads, low-cost Facebook ads can boost out to those people. And we don't boost ads, that particular term, because it's not targeted enough. But I do believe it's the future of social is not just the organic posts, but also a small amount of paid advertising behind it to get that reach out there as well. I think, jump, Kathy.
So perhaps if we actually think, and I'm just randomly going to go and have a look at the types of people we've got. So if I was in the business of being in insurance, something on social media could be, without names, because we know we need to be careful, but something on social media could be, really pleased that I was able to, 2 months ago, a family came to me and they wanted me to put their insurance in place. Sadly, in the last month, the dad has passed away, and I now know that mum and kids are secure because there was a payout that we put into place. That might not meet all your criteria, because I know there's a period from insurance going into payout, et cetera, or the alternative could be, celebrating beautiful brides if you've dressed a bride for a specific day, and starting to share some of those happy stories that people can connect to. Because remember, think of social media as going to a barbecue. If you arrive to the barbecue, as Paul said, which is, this is what I do, this is what I do, this is what I do, then possibly people are going to try and not stand next to you at the barbecue. They're going to run to somebody else because, oh my God, that person only talks about themselves. Whereas if you actually arrive at the barbecue and you go, I couldn't believe I had a woman come to me and she was so low in confidence and she really struggled to put a beautiful dress on. And I watched her transform from I'm just trying to think of the right, as she became a butterfly when she had the right dress on her. And that was just a fantastic thing to see. So people are going to connect with that story. People are going to connect with the emotions behind the story. And so irrespective of the platform, also start thinking about what you're going to be sharing. But please, don't take Fido, your dog, eating his bone into LinkedIn, because that's possibly not the channel for it.
And Kathy touched on it, story. So people are really interested in your story. And most people don't realize this, but the About Us page on your website is almost always the most clicked on, because people want to actually know who's behind it. I think that has really been overlooked. Big brands go online, they can get away with it. But if you're not a big brand, they want to know who's behind it. They want to know what's going on with you and behind that side. And that's where social media can be a good part to spread that out there. They get a feel so they actually know about you. I had this point, I haven't told you this one, Kathy. I put on an event for speaking a while back, and I knew I was going to send an update out on a Friday, and as it happens, I had the flu, not COVID related, by the way. But I crawled out of bed basically, and I sent an email. I said, look, I've just crawled out of bed. I've got the flu. I'm going to go at the event on Tuesday, but I just thought I'd let you know it's still all set up. And I fired out an email and I went back to bed. When I turned up at the event on Tuesday, people saying, oh, I hope you're feeling better. I went, oh, yeah, that's right. I sent that notification out. So people want to know about who they're dealing with, and that's where social is an element, is you're starting that process of knowing you. And especially in the part of real estate, for example, what you have is that ability to tell stories about that family that have gone into their new home for the first time, their story about that, and then direct them off to your website saying, look, I let people know when there's new stories come up. I tell people about new listings and be able to reach out to there. So you're taking off one platform, which you don't control, over to your own and building value in that way. And you've got another touch point, and it's building that those different touch points. They get to know you. They get to trust you. And I went on a call about video training this weekend. It was all about know, like, and trust. And that's where you're coming from. That's where you take your social media off the uncontrolled onto your own.
And think about that, Paul, just at that point in time, for those, and I am aware of time, and they've probably got quite a few more questions to get through. But the moment you take them off a place that you can't control and you bring them into your ecosystem and your website, guess what opportunity you now have with those people? You now have an opportunity to do some remarketing.
Yeah.
You've brought them in, and now for the next X amount of days, you can remarket to them. And you go, well, isn't that bad? You know, I landed a client because I remarketed. And I said, well, where were you seeing me? And he said, every single time I played Sudoku, you were there. How did you do it, Kathy? And I said, it's part of that remarketing. But also, how many times have you not gone to a website and you've gone, I really want to use that roof cleaner. I really want to use that person, or that's the person that I was referred to. And then when the phone rings, or the baby cries, or the dog needs to be let out, you forget. And then you forget where that person was. So if they market to you, it's a way of finding you again. Next question, Paul.
All right, so next one we've got is how to develop online sales. Kathy, you want to start off?
How to develop online sales. I think we've covered some of that already. So it's about having a meaningful funnel on your website. So some people will say, oh, I'm only going to do Facebook sales. And I go, that's perfect, unless, and we've seen it, somebody comes along and they report your Facebook business page, or Facebook decides that you've been in breach of something and you lose that funnel. So how would I look at sales? Obviously, you want to have a conversion environment. So you'd possibly wanting an e-commerce store if you're going to do it, if you're product driven. So you're selling socks, or you're selling cups, or you're selling something. So you'd want something that is people can access via a website. But the other side of it is, if you are sales and you are a service industry, as Paul mentioned earlier on, you want a compelling page for them to land on. So if you are a conveyancer and somebody has landed on your website for conveyancing, they're happy with what they see. And they're very comfortable either making the call or filling in the form, so that you then generate the lead. It's all about building confidence along the way. And the important thing that I think people should consider is we're dealing with a client at the moment, and she's very uncomfortable with this concept of a website. And she's very uncomfortable with multiple elements of having a website, but understanding that we are all different. If you are a nuts and bolts person who likes looking at the facts and the figures, you're going to want to come onto a page and you're going to want to see more details. So if you come onto a page, you might want to see what the garment was made of. You might want to see a lot more detail. Whereas if you're a picture person, you're going to want to come onto that sales page and see more pictures. Perhaps you want to see a video. Other people will come to a page and they're scanners. So they're just going to want to scan through a page. So when you are presenting an environment for a sale, also consider that you have got different elements that people will be attracted to. Some want the detail, others want the images, some want just headers. And so be prepared to have pages that can actually cater for that very different thought process. And I see questions just come through. What is the difference for sales on Instagram and Facebook Marketplace? So Paul, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I do. I want to tack onto yours first, Kathy, because I know where this stories come from. I think in particular industries, your website is a building a, what's the word I'm after? Sorry, an audience. So say for example, you've got specific products you launch over specific times, and your website should form an approach of, hey, can you sign up and I'll let you know when the next new design launches. I'll let you know when putting new products out. We'll let you know when, especially in the design and look and feel and touch industry, people want to see the new designs. People want to see when new stuff comes out. They want to be known they're on point when that comes out. So with that question as well, what's the difference between from sales on Instagram and Marketplace? They are just marketplaces. I don't think you necessarily want to create the sale on the marketplace so much. You want it to be a lead development to your website, because then they've come to your website, they're branded, they've already gone through it. Trying to develop sales on marketplace, and we had a client trying to do this recently, it's giving a lot of control over to Facebook doing everything for you and actually taking the sale from you completely. Whereas you really want to get them from the marketplace or from the area onto your location. And that means using your images and Instagram to get them onto your site. Get your images.
Also remember that those are great places to be in, and we'd always say be there, but be there with one of your basic product lines, something that's not obviously too out there, but something that you know you'd always be able to provide and give information to. But think about Marketplace. I go onto Marketplace and perhaps I'm looking for bed linen, and I Google I key in bed linen into Marketplace, and up comes all the places I can get. So think about it. Somebody's come, possibly they found your Facebook page, they've headed to Marketplace, they can see that. And what does Facebook do as the first call? They go, other products you may be interested in. And straight away, they take you from a New Zealand marketplace off to Amazon, where somebody's done a bit of an ad, and off to somewhere else where there are other products. So you've done all the hard work to pull them in. I would be pulling them in, but then shifting them to your website where you can try and do the conversion, because Facebook's role is to present them with all the other service providers in your environment. And straight away, you, as a searcher, they can lose their focus and head down another path.
Thank you. It was a question from me. So it was just really something I was just interested to hear from your point of view, because I haven't used them, and obviously they're always encouraging you to do things, and I just have not done anything. I mean, I'm obviously posting regularly on Instagram and Facebook about what we're doing, and so, and also hopefully leading people to our website. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I hope we've answered your question, Liz.
Right. Okay, we'll go on to my next one. So the next one talks about, I do not have a personal website and need help to prospect and lead through social media and ads. We've sort of touched on this one, haven't we, Kathy?
We certainly have. And again, not sure where the industry is, but I always think I've always talked about my ecosystem, and I've always talked about my pillar and my funnel. And my funnel will always come from having my understanding my audience, understanding how my audience could be searching for me, creating an infrastructure of web stroke blog stroke content. And then from there, sharing that information out. Again, building a brand in social is great, but please acknowledge that that can be done. And many people, you know, even if we think of some of the players in the real estate industry, they've created solid profiles in that environment. But usually what they've done is they've taken that into a community focus. So they've taken it into an environment where they show the recent sale, they'll show the family coming into the house, they'll share about the local baker, they will share information. But most of those people in that environment still have a solid website that they can pull people back to, that they can get leads and they can generate emails and they can start building their email database, because all it takes is a few things at Facebook for you to lose that environment. And, you know, I'm not trying to be negative, but Paul, myself, and my team see that regularly. The one client that Paul was referring to, it had taken 4 digital agencies to try and work through why that particular person couldn't get something shown on a Facebook marketplace. We couldn't get that accepted by Facebook. We then came in, fresh set of eyes, we turned the table, we changed our tack, we moved away from that Facebook product sale process, we moved into a Facebook ad process. We took them from the Facebook ad, we took them onto the website. And after 6 months of 0 sales, she made sales that weekend. So
that was a good story, because like the client itself, no one had looked at the product. So the product was alcohol based. And if you start reading between the fine print, none of the agencies had looked at it. And I'm at a loss why. You're not allowed to advertise alcohol products on a Facebook as a Facebook marketplace product. So I said, hang on a minute, why are you even trying to do this? Because they won't let you. So it was stepping back from what the client wanted and just understanding what the outcomes she wanted. And we literally ran a sale over the weekend, and it was profitable sales from advertising over the weekend. And now we're going, okay, now we've got the strategy in place. Let's check all the measurement to make sure we've got everything else. If we can spend $10 and make $15, well, if we do the same thing and spend $20, we can make $30. So it's about inching through that process. And like Kathy said, this person had been through, God knows how many agencies who told them to redesign the website and took them in a whole totally different direction. I don't know how much she spent, but it was a lot. We sort of put the brakes on and approached it from a different way.
And perhaps I'll share something from my own perspective. Over the last 2 years, we've seen the social field change dramatically. We've seen a lot more control over what you can place out onto that social field versus what we had before. And I'll give you my own example. So my own example is, obviously I run ad accounts and I've got ad accounts going. And I had a t-shirt, and on my t-shirt, it actually said limited edition. And I came up with the inspiration that I was going to talk about net branding and how we are limited edition when it comes to helping our clients. We focus on our clients, we think about them, we place their needs before us. And I did a complete live and video on this limited edition, and how I would then encourage people to think about how they provide their limited edition in their marketplace. Well, that video caused my ad account to be banned. And why? Because I was promoting network marketing and get rich quick schemes. I wasn't. All I was doing was saying, I'm limited edition, and what are you doing in your business to be limited edition? So very quickly, a algorithm can pick up something that can then penalize you. And think about it this way. At the end of the day, Google doesn't have a door you can go knock on. Facebook does not have a door you can go knock on. When that account is gone, where things are taken down, there's no one that you can turn to actually retrieve that. We've been successful in retrieving things, but it's never a guaranteed. So to the person who's going, how do I completely isolate and focus in on only social media to grow my business? Do that, but understand that there's a risk associated with that.
And this talked about, to start off with personal website. One of the best things I ever did was I bought my own website on my own name. I would have been 10 years ago. I was in an overseas event in Australia. And the guy says, if you haven't bought your own domain name for yourself, go and get it now. Like, okay, I'm going to go and do that. That's still something worth doing, because people are going to search your name, and that your website is going to rank, because even if it's simply done, because it's your name. So, and jumping on to what Kathy said, Google and Facebook use these lovely terms. It's ban, suspension, and they literally will, you're guilty until proven innocent. And what's been happening with Facebook ads, some of them, I know one of our clients, he had an ad that was written 2 to 3 years ago. There was nothing running it. There was no advertising running it. But then when Facebook changed their rules, that ad, which had no spend, no nothing, it wasn't showing anything, caused the account to get suspended, because it was still there. That type of stuff is what we deal with all the time. And sometimes we've got to talk to clients that a ban and a suspension may sound permanent, but it just means that you've got to massage the rules and play their game. And that's what happens with social quite a bit. If you get it wrong, they'll drop the hammer on you, and then you'll have to prove your innocence. How's that?
Paul, I'm aware we've got about 9 minutes to go, so I'm not quite sure. You're the master and control of all the questions.
Okay, so that was our last question that we've got. We've got a couple of, let me bring up our document, a couple other ideas. So the one we've got.
Does anyone have any other questions before we go to some other, other things that we could share?
Good point.
Otherwise, we'll continue with some of the other questions we have pre-planned.
I don't see anything.
Okay, Paul, do you have any other questions that you can fire at me?
So the one we've got here is how do you categorize digital marketing? And it talks about inbound and outbound marketing, which are terms a lot of agencies use a lot of too.
And ultimately, yeah, those terms are bandied about, and those terms can actually, I often think there are elements of those terms that can be interchanged. So, if I'm thinking about inbound, I always think about I'm going and I'm finding people out in the wider world and I'm pulling them into my infrastructure. So that's what I'd be thinking. So something as an example of inbound could be I place a Google ad out there and then I'm bringing them back into the website for them to do things. When I think of outbound and pushing out, what I'd be thinking of is writing some blog content and then maybe pushing that out. And so that's what I'd be seeing as outbound. Paul, you could differ, but ultimately, again, it comes to, Paul used the concept of the 3 legs. It comes to, a solid website presence, really focusing in on some search engine optimization, really making sure that you're thinking about where your audience are and placing that in that environment. And don't forget your local business search, because that's a very powerful environment. And often we go, well, how much time should I be spending doing all of this? If you are sitting with a website and your website is not being found for your personal name, then I'd be really working on that so that at least people can find you for a search when they're looking for you. Sorry,
I was going to just ask a question, because I haven't Googled my business. How important is that to have a presence on that? Because it's something I hadn't done. So,
well, absolutely, because think about it. If somebody knows about your brand and they are starting to Google you, then you obviously want to come up. And we were busy with a website not that long ago, and the website wasn't actually coming up for their business name at all. And that was because they actually only on the URL, so the domain right at the top, they had referenced their business, but everywhere else in the text, they'd referred to themselves as I and we. So Liz, to answer your question, Googling yourself and actually having a snoop around how you come up is possibly the best place to understand how people are experiencing it when they search for you. But also consider doing it in different search engines. So for example, doing it in Bing, doing it in Chrome, doing it off Safari. Understand what the difference could be if they're Googling from a laptop versus Googling from a mobile device. How are you coming up in all those different environments? Because again, people do things in a very different way.
Keeping in mind too, I got caught this about 5 years ago, because Google actually provides different results if you Google the same thing. And if you're logged into a Google account, or if you've got a Gmail account or anything like that, they might provide different results to you than they would to someone else. Because if you're Googling your name over and over again and they're trying to serve better results. And if you're not clicking on the results, they're saying, oh, you're not getting what you're looking for. So sometimes it's going to a friend's house, go to an internet cafe and Googling your name and see if you still come up in that type of area. So that's one thing. The other thing, outbound marketing. Outbound marketing is a lot of it fits in the cold call market. In several agencies that I've worked with different times, their whole model was cold calling, cold emailing, whatever you want to push out there. Has an extremely low result rate. Extremely low, and it's extremely a lot of work. So that's the outbound marketing side of it. So the next one we've got, Kathy, we are getting on a bit, is just explaining what SEO is. And if you don't mind, I'll probably take this one.
Go for it.
So SEO, I had someone ask me in an event what SEO is. SEO is search engine optimization. And in the big picture, it is making your website as important to Google that Google shows you in the first results. So providing them with the information they're looking for to say, hey, this person knows what they're talking about, XYZ subject, I'm going to put you up high there. Now, there is a lot of elements to that. There is the keywords of what you want to come up for, how you build your structure, how you build your page, how the site is put together. And then also that's called the on-page factors, which is one element. And then there's the off-page factors, is how do people link to your website? What do they say about your website? What links, text are they putting in that link? Are they linking back to you saying, and this is a side note, a few years back, there was when a particular president was in the American market I won't go into his name just in case we get into political side, but the White House website ranked for #1 for miserable failure, because a lot of people have decided to link to the website saying miserable failure. Clearly, I think Google stepped in and fixed that, but that's the type of effect that happens from that side. But that's what SEO is in a broad box. There's more to it, but that's...
And for me, SEO, or search engine optimization, is nothing more than increasing visibility. Increasing visibility and increasing your rankings and increasing your spread. And again, sort of, I know I started with it, but being very careful, one, not to target your competitor, because as Paul said, if somebody is looking for that competitor, they know them already and they're looking for them for a purpose. But ultimately also looking to ensure that you have a good coverage, because your clients will be utilizing different terms to find you. So if somebody comes along and says, I'm going to get you onto the first page with guaranteed results, just tread with caution. Now, I am aware that we have had the hour. I possibly will end off the formal part of this, stop the recording, and then we can just have a chat between us. But Paul, I'd like to thank you for leading this as you have, and for providing your enthusiasm. And Paul is a very valued member of our net branding team. In terms of where we are going, I will switch off the video now, and I want to thank each and every single one of you for sending in your questions and joining us on today's session. That's Kathy and Paul from Net Branding and our panel of participants signing out.